Good afternoon. Um, Today I'm just going to do a short video that I'm going to upload, so it's free for everybody to have a look at. You'll also find it on my YouTube channel as well. I'll put it up on Facebook as well and on my Patreon for free members and for paid members. But it's really just a little bit of explaining what pencils I use, colour pencils, and why I use them and how good they are. So I've always mainly stuck to the two go-to pencils, which are Polychromos, which are made by a German company called Faber-Castell. I mean, for reasons that I've explained before, the colour range, there's 120 of them, and they've got some beautiful colours in there. They're an oil-based pencil. Now, to be honest, wax-based, oil-based, I just go on the way the pencils actually perform for what piece of work I'm doing. I don't really sort of think about whether they're oil-based or wax-based. Um, Now, the Faber-Castell do keep a very good point, and I do find for detail, so on the upper layers of any of the work that I do find they are really good for that. They keep a point. Um, Value-wise, they're not too bad a price, to be honest, compared to the other two pencil sets that I use. They are cheaper than those, but they are light fast as well, and the colours are quite vibrant, and they do blend quite easily as well. So they're the reasons why I use Polychromos. I would say they're the more of my go-to pencil than anything. I also like Caran d'Ache Luminance. And I do have also a set of the Caran d'Ache Pablo, which are a lower brand than the Luminance, but some of the colours in there are really nice colours, and I use them for base layers. So I do use the Caran d'Ache Pablo as well. They are a hexagon shaped pencil. They're a slimmer barrel than the Luminance. As I say, the colours are there. The lay down's just as good. They're a little bit cheaper than the Luminance, so I do use them occasionally. I don't use a lot of them, but I do use them occasionally. They've got some, like the apricot is a very nice colour, which is used quite a lot, and some of the greys as well I like. Um, and as I say, Caran d'Ache Luminance is my other main go-to pencil. That's classed as a wax-based pencil, made by a Swiss company called Caran d'Ache. Now, what I like about them is they've got a lot of colours they've got like the burnt sienna, but they've also got a burnt sienna 50% and burnt sienna 10%. So they've got some tonal values in there, which when you're doing animals, there's some really good choices in there. So I do use those a lot when I'm doing base layers for animals again. I use them mainly for the base layers. I do use some of them for the top layers as well, but they are mainly for the base layers because they lay down because they're wax based, they do lay down a nice vibrant layer of colour. And they do blend nice with solvents, but they also blend nice with pencils or a colourless blender. It's very rare I use solvent to blend, but you could do. And another one that I use from the Caran d'Ache range is the Museum Aquarelle. Now they're a watercolor pencil, but they're one of the top of the range ones. And I do sometimes use them for a base layer if the paper I'm using, because sometimes the paper that you're using or the surface that you're using can affect the way the pencils perform as well. So sometimes you can see if I'm using a watercolor paper, the grain effect, the texture of the grain of the paper can sometimes show through. So sometimes I do use the Museum Aquarelle pencils as a base layer and then use them and add water to them to soften the colouring so that it takes some of those the graininess out of the paper. And then I can add coloured pencil on top once it's dry, and it does accept it very well. And again, the colours are very good, the barrel's quite thick. And when you add water to it, it does dissolve the pigment and it does smooth it out. Whereas I have found with some watercolor pencils, I shy away from them a lot because some of them are scratchy. And when you've got them and you put some pressure on them or whatever, and you put the water on, they don't blend totally as you'd expect them to. So the one that I found is the Museum Aquarelle is the best one, but they aren't cheap either. But I do use them, but very sparingly. I don't use them that often. But today, what I want to talk about is another pencil which I'm introducing into, and I'm going to be using a lot more of as well on both my Patreon site and on works commissions. I have used it on commissions, and I do like this pencil, but it is an expensive pencil, and it's part of the Derwent range. Now I have tried quite a lot of the Derwent range, and the pastel pencils I do find they're quite good. I'm not keen on the watercolor pencils. That's just my personal preference. They might suit what kind of work you do. Again, it's what work you do and what so it's what style of work you want, and also it's the surface that you're going to use. The Derwent Lightfast is the one that I do like. It's an oil-based, or again, it's supposed to be an oil-based pencil. It's got show you I've got one here. It's quite a large barrel. So you can see there, it's got quite a large barrel. It has its name on there, and then it has its so it's by Derwent. It's made in England, in Britain. It tells you the colour there and its light fastness. Now these are light fast. These have been tested according to the company, and these should last if kept under certain conditions. They will not fade for up to 70 years. But they are more or less 100% Lightfast. They are a really nice pencil. They've got quite a thick, chunky barrel there. And the colours that they've got in the range are brilliant. Now I'm going to change the camera so that we can go. Let me just grab this box here. Use the notes. Ooh. I'm going to try and show you some of the pencils here. So I'm going to change the camera. So I'm now going to go onto my StreamCam camera so you can see. Right, so you're going to see quite a lot of the box there, but so I'm going to sort of hold one up so you can see it a little bit better there. Well, let me turn that round. So this one is called a Golden Sun Lightfast 2. So they're all either a 1 or a 2. But they're nearly all ones, to be quite honest. They're made in Britain. The barrel itself is made of a very good quality wood, and the core is quite a thick core as well. Now they do sharpen, so to a very nice sharp point. So I'll just sharpen this one for you. Use the sharpener on the table. That's my got some working on a glass table. So I've sharpened that. So you can see there we get a really nice sharp point on it. I haven't come across problems with breakages or anything like that at the moment. You've got the wood is shown as the barrel itself, the wood that they use. Then on the end, you've got the colour on the tip there with this band of like a Payne's grey colour going round there. I would say they're not, let's have a look, compare them to the, oops. So if I've got a Lightfast one here, so if you look at the thickness of the barrel of those two, they're not far off the same. And the same with the ends, the cores and that, you know, they're both quite chunky. They're both the same kind of wood, really good quality wood for the barrel, which is important. And so, you know, as I say, the colour ranges, so we've got sort of plenty of yellows to reds. But what I like about these is, let me show you. So, you know, you usually get a white in your set, and then a couple of light fleshy colours. Well, these are very cleverly done. So you've got a white, you've got, you know, white, but then you've got like where the blues are, you've got this Arctic white. So it's a white with a very blue tinge to it. And then you've also got one here, which is called light aqua. So that's got a tint of the aqua colour to it. And then you've also got, if we come along here, we've got what we call, this one's called oyster. And that's got sort of a pinky. So this is sort of equivalent to the luminance pink white. So it's very much like that colour. And then if we have a look, we've got some more here. We've got the white. Yeah, so we've got the white there, and we've got like a cool grey, which is very light, but that's the white one. So we have got quite a good selection of the lighter coloured pencils, which we sometimes miss out on the other pencil ranges. especially on things like on the polychromos, you don't get that many choices of them. We get quite a good choice of greens and the browns on here as well. So we've got like that's a raisin, so that's a reddy brown. Um, we've got the chocolate, which is a very, very dark brown. Then the greys, you've got cloud grey. We've got the cool grey. So that's like a cool grey. That's sort of equivalent to the cool grey one in the polychromos. Got a warm grey as well, which is a bit more like the 3 or 4 in the polychromos range. We've got a taupe. Now I use taupe quite a lot. I do like that colour. It's a purpley grey to be quite honest. And it's great for shadows. So I do use that quite a lot. Then we've got the browns, we've got and greens. There's lots of different greens in here. And we do have a lot of like the olive greens, forest green, ivy. We've got a lichen green. And then you've got your neutrals like you've got like a neutral orangey colour, like a sandstone, the burnt sienna. You've got a Persian orange in the more neutral tones. Then we've got the yellow ochres as well and brown ochres. Then you've got the pinks range and the blues. You've got a nice range of blues. And then we've got the yellows and reds. Now, we don't have as many yellows and reds in this set as what you do in the others, but, you know, that's irrelevant, to be honest. Let me try and move this now carefully. Excuse me. So now I keep them in a wooden box. Then they'll be going into here when I've got them set up. And then I have some drawers where I actually keep the spares. So let me just change the video back again to the other one, so you might be able to see this better. So when I've got them, so the pencils that I like to work with, the polychromos and the luminance, and then I'm going to be adding the Lightfast into here. So then there's 3 types of pencils in there, and I've lots of these tubs, and I keep them kept upright. And what I do is I can obviously pick out the colours. So I keep the whites, usually the whites and blacks I keep separately, but on here I've got them in. So we've got the white, the creams, the yellows up to oranges, right, in this tub. Then I'll have the reds. So then we've got the reds that go into the sort of pinks, purples there. Then I've got another one, which is the tubs, which are the blues and the greeny blues. And then I've got a tub of the green. Then we have the neutral colours. So these are the colours such as like the terracottas and the sort of neutral colours that we get. Ochres. We've got the flesh colours in there. And then also I have a separate tub with the browns in. So see there, we've got the browns. Then what I do is I've got a tub that I keep all the greys in. So I've got both the warm and the cool greys kept together, but I can find them in there. Then what I have is one separate tub, which I keep for these have got just the luminance in, and these are the percentage ones that I was talking about. So like here, we've got, for instance, dark flesh, 5%, and then there'll be another dark flesh and what have you, so on, so on, so on. Then we've got the brown ochre, so that's the brown ochre 50%. But then we'll also have a brown ochre 10% and a brown ochre, full brown ochre. So I found that by working that way, then I'm fine. So if I put all 3 brands into those tubs, when I'm looking at the picture and I've done a colour picker, which I'll speak to on another video about how to do that, I do it through Illustrator, and I do a colour picker. Then I find it easier when I've got them all the 3 pencils together, 3 brands of pencils, I can find which is the most suitable out of all of the brands. Whereas if they're all in separate tins, you've got to get all the tins out and messing about. Whereas if they're all in one of those tubs vertical, then it's easier for me to find the colours that I'm looking for. But one thing I always do when I get a set of pencils, so this is what I do every time I have a set. I do one of these, which is a colour swatch. So I cut card, usually the paper that I use mostly, which when I first started, I only ever used Fabriano Artistico. So these are all done on there. And then what I've done is I've done a line down there, and then I put the numbers. Then I've put the name. So this is for the Lightfast set. So it's got the names. And then here I've put the light fastness level on them. So you can see whether they're a 2 or a 1. And then I do this with all the sets because then if I want to, it's easy to put that against a picture and find. So if I know I'm looking for some sort of orange, from a yellow to an orange, I can have a look there and see which one out of every brand is the best. I can do it that way as well, so you can colour pick that way. But these are fine. These are a good thing to have so that you can see all the different colours that you've got. And it's easier to keep a track on the stock as well that you've got. So I do advise that you do one of those for every set that you have. So I've got them for the luminance. I've got them for, that's a luminance. I've got them for the Pablo. So that's the Pablo set. That's the luminance set. And I've got them for the polychromos. And I've also just got a new set of ChromaFlow. And I'm just working with those. So I will give a review on those as well. Now, the polychromos, I did change into family groups. And there is a video out there, which I'm sure you can see, you'll find. And that puts all of these together. So it's like 4 wheels that go around. And I started around here. So these are what we call the true yellow. So I put 107 is the true yellow, and that's a warm colour. And then that goes to the yellow greens, which are cool. Or you come up to yellow orange, which is, so this side of the wheel is warm, and then this side of the wheel is cool. And if you look underneath, you can put your yellows. So what I do is I line them up. So the true yellows, I line up there. So you can see all of these are true yellows. Then we go here to the yellow ochres, which are a warmer yellow. Then we go to the oranges. And then here, these are the yellow greens. So these are the cooler sort of yellow and yellow greens. So that's the polychromos range. Now you'll notice it doesn't have a lot of oranges in its range. And that's what I say, you'll come across different pencils, like the Lightfast don't have a lot of yellows. So I've got compensate because I have quite a lot of yellows in the polychromos and in the luminance range as well. Okay, so I do suggest that whatever colour pencils you get, just do a colour swatch like this and keep it, because it does come in handy when you're picking colours for your projects. Okay, and as I say, I'll explain how they work as and when we're doing a project. Now, as I say, I do keep them in those upright tubs. I take out the colours that I need for that project, and then I have just this one. I have one round tub that I keep for that, and inside that tub as well, I keep things like my puffer. So when I'm working, I have things in here that are sort of like so it's like a little penguin. I've got my brush, got my little puffer to puff away all the dust. I have a little sandpaper thing for sharpening things, like if I want a little point on this. This is a battery rubber. These are brilliant. And you can change the nib on this to a fine nib or a quite a big nib. I do have another one that's got just the big nib. And then I also have my ceramic blade, which I use a lot. And again, I've got another one of those that's really, really small. And then I have my normal pencil in there. So, and then I can put the pencils that I'm using for that project in there. So again, they're stood vertical, which is better. But if you're transporting them, put them in a tin. Or if you're only having one set of pencils, then fine, just keep them in the tin and keep them laid flat. Now you can buy things like the suitcases. Now I've had them myself. But what I've found sometimes with the suitcases, that the leaves in between sort of bang against each other, and they can sometimes cause breakages in your pencil. So I've started now just storing them back in the cases. But the 3 main ones that I use, I do keep in these tubs vertically, and they're kept in one cupboard, so that it's easy enough for me to get the colours that I need for that project. And then the other spare sets, like the ChromaFlow, the Pablo, I've got some Castle Gold. I've got the Derwent pastel pencils. I've got the Derwent the watercolor pencils. They're all kept in their tins because I don't use them as often. So I just keep them in the drawer, in the cupboard, and then I can get them out as and when. Now, sometimes when your pencils go a bit smaller as well, it's hard to keep a track on them. Because if you put them in one of those tubs, you can lose them quite easily. So what I've got here is I've got this contraption. It's a kitchen utensil, to be honest. So all my small polychromos ones are in here. So when I'm looking for, because you'll find that it's certain colours that wear down faster than most of the others. So what I do is I tend to look in here first. Oops, that in there. I look in here first and I get the smaller ones out. And then what happens is I can put them into one of these, which is a pencil extender. So say like this one. And the reason is it's when you put them in the sharpener, they're a bit too sharp, they're not very good for doing the sharpening. So what I do is put them in a pencil extender and then you can hold them just as you would a normal pencil. So you can hold it further back because the further back that you hold the pencil, the less pressure you put on it. So yeah, that's great for doing the lighter moves. And again, with those, what I do is I have this little wooden box. So I always keep like a museum Aquarelle white in here because that's one of the best whites. And then I have these other little rubbers like Tombow rubbers. That is my smaller ceramic blade. It is so small you can hardly probably see it, but it's up there. It's a very small blade. I use it occasionally, but for certain things, but not that much. And then I've got the ones that I have in pencil extenders I keep in here. And then I've also got in here a couple of the colourless blenders, for if I do use them. I do tend to use a white pencil instead. But as I say, you can use a white pencil, solvent, or even these colour blenders. Okay. And sometimes I even use just something as simple as a cotton wool wood. They're good as well for blending. And then in here, I've got my luminance ones, which I use the most. So I always look in them first to get them so that, I mean, I have got them down as, let's have a look, the smallest one that I've got. Smallest one in here is that one. So what I've done with that is it's been sanded off. And what I'll do is I'll get another white, sand the end off of that one, and then you can actually stick them together. And then you've got a bigger pencil and you can sharpen them and you can get them right down. I mean, I've had them as small as just the tip of the pencil. So that's a money saving tip. So you need it flat like that and then get the other side flat. And then you can fasten them together, glue them together, and then you've got a bit longer pencil. So it lasts longer and you get more out of it because they're not cheap. Anything but cheap. The Faber-Castell, I would say the cheaper out of the three that I use, the main ones that I use. And Luminance and Lightfast are about on the same par. You can get them for around £3.50, £4 at the moment. I mean, they have gone up. Some places they're very expensive. But the Polychromos are about £2. I think I got some the other week and they were £2.30, which is cheap. For those. I mean, when I used to sell them in the art room, they were £1.99. But of course, cost of living's gone up, and this is why I do, try and look at money saving tips like sticking the ends together and extending the pencil. So I've got it for a little bit longer. Another piece of equipment that I recommend you have is a piece of the Clairefontaine acetate. And that's good for resting your hand on when you're doing your work, because obviously you don't want to smudge it. And also because ladies use a lot of hand products as well, you don't want the oil going onto your paper. Some of the surfaces that I tend to use I use the Faber-Castell hot press paper. That was the first paper I ever used to colour pencils on, and it's still one of my favourites. But I also do like using drafting film. Now that gives a photographic quality, especially when you're doing things like birds or animals and fur on them, and you get some fantastic effects if you've got a ceramic blade and you're using the drafting film. The thing with drafting film is though you can't put as many layers on as what you can with the hot press paper. But you can use other surfaces. If I'm doing portraits, I tend to use something like the mount board, what you use for mounting around pictures. It's really soft, smooth surface. So I use that when I'm doing portraits. I haven't done any animals on it yet, but the portraits work fine on it. And then there's other things like Bristol smooth, Bristol vellum. They're good for coloured pencils. That's a good surface. And then there's pastel mat. Now, some people struggle with pastel mat if they've been using watercolour paper because your techniques have to change. Instead of doing light to dark, you can put light on top of dark on the pastel mat to a certain degree. So you work in different ways, and that's what throws people. They get a little bit despondent and think, oh God, this I can't use this surface, it's no good for me. But you do have to persevere with it. So I suggest you cut some small pieces because again, that's an expensive piece of equipment, is pastel mat. And just cut some smaller pieces and do some practicing with it and just check some videos out on YouTube, stuff like that, and that you will find that you can use it. I use it a lot for animals. It gives that nice soft effect. The cat that I did recently, that was done on pastel mat. Now I've just purchased some new surface which I haven't used yet, so I can't really comment on it, but I've heard very good reviews on it, and it has been hard to get hold of it. And it's the Canson My Tens Velvet. Now, Canson, I've used the My Tens, which is very similar to pastel mat, but just a bit coarser. And you can get it in different colours like you can with the pastel mat. And I have used that before, but I used it mainly with pastel pencils. Now, the velvet is a lot smoother. It's a little bit smoother than the pastel mat, so it may be easier for people to adjust from the paper up to that. It's a bit thicker, 400 and I'm not sure, but I think it's about 460 GSM. So I haven't tried that yet, but I have got a pack of it, so I will be trying it out. And once I've done it, I'll give you my opinion on it. But as I say, don't let that stop you from trying it, because everybody's different. But I do a lot of animals, so I like surfaces that work well, so that I can produce some animals. I do a lot of commissions as well. So as I say, I use either the Fabriano Artistico, or even Archer's hot press, and you can get plenty of layers on them. But if I've got quite a furry dog that's got sort of long fur or curly fur, wavy fur, then I do tend to use probably the drafting film because I can get more use with the ceramic blade to get the hair and the fur to look right. So I thought I'd give you this, and then what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to move the camera again and just show you a little bit of the Lightfast. So let's have a go here with some of these Lightfast pencils, so you can see how they work. Now I like them because they are very creamy, and to lay down, they're very easy to lay down. So I've got some here. So I've got the red and the yellow that are really sharp, and then you've got the green, which is not quite as sharp. And then this actually is a mid blue. And that's quite blunt. So let's have a look and see how these lay down. So I want to start with this mid blue. Okay. So I'm just going to go from a light pressure. And then I'm just going to put a little bit more pressure on now. And that goes to that pressure there. Okay, so it lays down. That's quite nice. It feels very creamy. Then we've got the green and smooth, and then I'm just gonna. So that's just doing the normal side to side stroke. So let's have a look at see how they blend. So let's have a look. Let's try the blue and the yellow, see if we can get a nice green. So I'm going to lay down the yellow first. Again, they're really velvety and buttery. They're probably not quite as hard as the polychromos. So you have to keep turning it, yeah, because that's used quite a bit of that end there, look. So if you keep turning it round, so let's put a little bit of the blue on there and see if we get a nice green. Oh yeah, they do blend nice there. Release the pressure as we come out. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to get one of my colourless blenders. I'm going to see what happens. Now, can you see how they blend? They do blend really nicely. And I'm not putting a lot of pressure on there either. I'm only putting a light pressure on. And that blends into a nice green. Now, another thing you can use with these that makes them look light paint is if you use a oil, so like probably a thinner that you would use for your oil paints. And that will probably work for these as well to soften them out. And then what we got here, so let's have a look here if we put that's the red. Yellow. There you go. You get a nice orange in between there. So they do blend quite nicely actually. And as I say, they do feel a lot velvety and smoother than the other pencils that I use. The only concern is with me with the polychromos, you will probably get, I mean, it still does keep sharp for detail, so you can use it for sharp details as well. So I will probably be using these a lot more in the future, and combining them. I have used them with the polychromos and the luminance, and they do all work well together. So they are going to be my three main pencils. So, but as I say, when you're doing a project, don't be put off when you see people say, "Oh, I'm using a polychromos Van Dyke Brown." If you haven't got it. What I tend to do with my projects is I will do a colour swatch. So I'll put the photograph in the middle of the page and then I pull it off and put a ring of colour so that when it's printed off, you can pick them. You can use that then against the colours that you've got in your brand of pencils, if it's a totally different brand. And you can find the nearest colours to them and just write them down. You don't have to have the exact same set of pencils that I have. Which a lot of people do get put off being taught how to use pencils because of that. But no, you can use your own brand of pencils. I do give a swatch of colours that are used in the piece. I try and do it from an illustrator, so you've got the photograph in the middle, and then you've got these from the certain areas coming out with the circles of colour. And when you print them off, it's easy for you to match up your colour and write it in either in the colour round circle colour or just make a list on your sheet of paper so you know what's for what. And it's a good way for you to get to know your pencils and your colours as well, which is important. Okay, so I hope that's give you a little bit of insight into the pencils that I use and why I use them. So as I say, the polychromos, the great advantage with them is you've got warm greys and you've got cold greys. And with the Lightfast, I've got all the different light pencils as well. So I hope that's helped you today and given you a bit more advice on coloured pencils. And which ones you can have a go at. But if you're not sure, don't go buying expensive pencils. Just buy some cheaper ones to start with. Okay, I'll be going into some cheaper pencils as well to see and give you some advice on those on later videos. But thank you for now for listening, and I will speak to you again shortly. Thank you very much. Bye.